The saga of Alec Baldwin is far from over. And I'm not ready to walk away from this story because I think there will be criminal charges. And looking at the latest news, the finger pointing, it seems like there could be murder here. Intentional, willful actions taken to end a life. I don't know if you guys saw the story with Alec Baldwin. Apparently he was giving some comment. He was like, I can't give any comment. That was basically his comment, but he seemed fairly frantic. And I think, obviously he's being investigated criminally, but now all these pieces are starting to come together. For those that missed the story somehow, Alec Baldwin on the set of his movie Rust drew his weapon, pulled the trigger, and shot and killed a cinematographer as well as injuring the director. Initially, the reports were that it was a misfire, that it was a blank, that shrapnel from the camera flew in the face of someone, and then later we started to get the real details. Alec Baldwin was handed a gun. He drew it. He was rehearsing. He pulled it, and then he finger on the trigger, depressed the trigger, bullet comes out, hits and kills woman. We're learning a few things. One, we have the story from Daily Mail. Alec Baldwin and Rust crew had been told never to point a gun at a person, lawyer for armorer says. Attorneys question how live ammo made its way into the dummy rounds box. Now, there's a bunch of speculation, but again, this is me basically saying I think there may be intentional murder here. Maybe, and I think it may be Alec Baldwin. Now, this is just speculation, I think in the end, what'll likely happen is if there are charges, it'll be like negligent homicide or something like that. But I think manslaughter. I think manslaughter, perhaps. The reason is, with this story right now, this story that just came out the other day, that Alec Baldwin had been told never to point the weapon at people, we now have the confirmation of what most of us already assumed, and that is on movie sets, you don't point guns at people. But here's where it gets crazy. Here's where the murder comes in. This is from Yahoo News. Sabotage could be behind tragedy on Baldwin movie set, lawyer says. That's right. This is where things are starting to get real crazy. The crew had been complaining about the conditions. Several crew had already walked off. There had already been several negligent discharges. So, what are we looking at now? A conspiracy is afoot, my friends. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying the stories that we're getting now apparently would be, well, if these stories are true, then let me map out what they're claiming basically happened with Alec Baldwin. You get angry crew members. They want to protest. They know the gun has been negligently just discharged. So one of these angry crew members places a live round in the box, knowing sooner or later someone's going to put it in, and then they're going to be negligent with the firearm and hit somebody. Now, the reason why I think there could actually be something more like murder in this capacity, I'll put it this way. I'm not saying it's a great likelihood. I'm just saying the fact that Alec Baldwin was told not to point the gun at people but then chose to, gives me pause as to how all of this went down. So somebody gave live ammo to Alec Baldwin who knew he wasn't supposed to point the gun at somebody and then did. Why are we assuming it's not murder? I want you to think about that for 2 seconds. Why are we assuming that Alec Baldwin did not murder this woman? There's no good reason. If people had been complaining, and Alec Baldwin claims the woman was his friend, how do we know that she wasn't one of the people who were complaining? How do we know that? Why would we assume that a guy who picks up a gun, aims it at someone when he knows he's not supposed to, with a live bullet in it and pulls the trigger, oh, that was an accident? That to me is crazy. Imagine like a woman and a husband are fighting, and then the husband gets in his car and is driving home from work, and he sees his wife and he slams the gas and just rams into her and goes, it was an accident. Didn't realize the gas would accelerate that way. You'd be like, no, get out of here. We immediately assume that was intentional. Why not now? Too many people are willing to give Alec Baldwin the benefit of the doubt, and I don't think we should. If he's part of the production that's running a movie and it's got bad conditions, why would we assume he was... Why would we give him the benefit of the doubt? Here's the story from Yahoo News. Sabotage. This is where things get crazy. They say a lawyer for the armorer who oversaw weapons used on the Rust movie set suggested on Wednesday that someone deliberately put a live round into the gun used by Alec Baldwin when he accidentally shot dead a cinematographer. Why are we saying that? This is the crazy thing. Why has everyone just immediately assumed it was an accident? Seriously. I mean, give me a good reason. And now that they're saying someone put the bullet in the gun, maybe it was Alec Baldwin. Maybe. They're trying to claim that the armorer handed him the gun, and I think the reason we're getting this narrative is because the media's on the side of the Democrats. Alec Baldwin is a major Democrat activist, anti-Trump figure, so the media just says protect him. Sorry, if the story is a dude was overseeing, at least to a certain degree, a movie set with bad conditions, pointed a weapon at somebody and pulled the trigger, sounds like intentional. Jason Bolas said his client, Hannah Gutierrez, had pulled ammunition from a box that she believed contained only dummy rounds that were incapable of firing. He says he thought it was possible that someone purposely placed real bullets in the box. Quote, "We're afraid that could have been what happened here, that somebody intended to sabotage this set with a live round intentionally placed in a box of dummies," Bolas said on ABC's Good Morning America. "We're not saying anybody had any intent there. There was going to be a tragedy of homicide, but they wanted to do something to cause a safety incident on set. That's what we believe happened." A spokesman for the producers, Rust Movie Productions, had no comment on Bolas's remarks. The company has said it is investigating the incident and had received no official complaints about safety on the set in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Authorities are investigating the matter, and no charges have been filed against anyone involved. Quote, "Never in a million years did Hannah think that live rounds could have been in the dummy round box," Bolas said in a statement later on Wednesday. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed on October 21st when a gun Baldwin was holding released a live bullet, police said. Baldwin had been told by Assistant Director Dave Halls the gun was cold, an industry term meaning it is safe to use. Now, we can pause right here and just say outright, no matter what, as I've stated before, Alec Baldwin is completely responsible for this, period. But I absolutely believe we need to be asking ourselves, why assume accidental? For any reason. Why? Ask yourself that question. The investigators need to approach this from a neutral standpoint. Bolas said Gutierrez had checked the gun before giving it to Halls. She spun the cylinder and showed Halls each of the rounds, which she believed were 6 dummy rounds, he said. Halls then took the gun into the church area where Baldwin was rehearsing a scene. He said that Gutierrez took her job seriously, had given Baldwin and other actors on the film firearms training, and did everything in her power to ensure a safe set. Now, I'm going to slow down once again. When we approached this on Timcast IRL, and when I covered this before, we all operate under the assumption that it was the armorer who was inexperienced and probably did it wrong. I'm thinking to myself, why? Now, look, I'll be honest. I had a whole other segment set up about, vaccines and kids and all this stuff. And then I saw these stories and I started asking myself, why is it that we approach this as though the armorer was at fault? Because think about it this way. The armorer actually is, of all the people, the person with actual firearms training, the one person who actually knows how to handle firearms properly. Alec Baldwin is an arrogant egotist who thinks he's smarter than everybody. Now, look, I'm a fan of Baldwin's acting. I'm a big fan of 30 Rock. He does Jack Donaghy very well. But if I'm going to actually stop and approach this from a neutral standpoint, what I get is Alec Baldwin is the kind of guy, many of these leftists, they know nothing about guns. They don't know how to treat guns, how to handle guns. And they treat them, and when they are, doing movies, it's lax. Right now, all of these leftists have been responding to me saying, "Oh, you clearly don't understand who's at fault and how movie sets work. Alec Baldwin's not his fault because someone else handed him the gun." And I'm just like, why did we assume from the get-go that Gutierrez didn't do her job right? Instead of realizing you've got an angry crew walking off set. Is that not motive for Alec Baldwin? For real. I think we need to recognize that we know nothing about this. Alec Baldwin had motive. A bunch of people are disrupting his movie. They're walking off set. They're complaining. Alec Baldwin was told not to point the guns at people, point a gun at anyone ever, and he did. And the armorer claims the weapon was checked. Did Alec Baldwin load this and say, "I'm sick of this, bang"? Look, a lot of people are saying, that's far-fetched, right? Let's try the alternative. 3 people failed to check a gun. Alec Baldwin just accidentally pointed at someone and pulled the trigger and it had a real bullet in it. The out of 6 rounds in the chamber, the one that was ready to go just happened to have been the live round and Alec Baldwin just accidentally pointed it at someone. Doesn't it sound crazier? All right. Asked who would intentionally place live ammo with dummy rounds. Bolas said on NBC's Today Show that he believed it could be a person who wanted to prove a point, to say they're disgruntled, they're unhappy. And we know that people had already walked off the set the day before. I'm sorry. It sounds to me more like Alec Baldwin was angry with the crew for screwing him over. He's a producer on the movie, right? Now, I don't think Alec Baldwin's a murderer. Maybe it just does make more sense that someone was disgruntled and put a bullet in the box. But then that would mean that someone from the crew was disgruntled and tried setting up Alec Baldwin. But that would require Alec Baldwin to decide to point the gun at someone and pull the trigger. In which case, that is not the simple solution. Baldwin is also a producer on the film. He has said that he is heartbroken and is cooperating with authorities. Now, look. We're gonna spin yarn here. We're gonna spin you a yarn here. From TMZ, Alec Baldwin doubts rust will continue after Helena Hutchins' death. Did you guys see this video? When Alec Baldwin gave a statement, he said, "She was my friend. She was my friend. The day before production, I went out and had dinner with her." Really? Could he have been having a meeting with Helena Hutchins over the bad conditions? Could she have been saying, look, people are not happy with what's going on? Could he have been like this MFing SOB coming here and saying these things to me? Let me map it out again. Alec Baldwin pointed the gun at someone and pulled the trigger to live round in it. Now we get all of this assumption and speculation as to how that could have happened. And they're saying maybe people were target shooting. That's one of the stories. People were target shooting, and so the live rounds were left right there. Possibly. But then why did Alec Baldwin point the gun and pull the trigger? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Okay, well, maybe someone tried sabotaging Alec Baldwin. Why did Alec Baldwin point the gun and pull the trigger? This guy's got to get charged, in my opinion, man. TMZ says the actor addressed a swarm of paparazzi Saturday who were hounding him in Manchester, Vermont, where he and his family have been laying low since the fatal incident, but have been getting followed around, including on the open road, where the Baldwin family literally pulled over to confront the photogs, whom Alec says made his kids cry. Alec came at them head on, with none other than his wife, Hilaria, at his side, and they spoke their piece on where things stand without divulging too much about the investigation. They say, from the looks of it, the convo was pretty tense, albeit courteous. Baldwin demands to know what the paparazzi wanted to know, so they could get off his back. And they sounded off one by one, where on where things stand as the probe into this matter unfolds. Alec said he can't discuss the details by order of the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office. I'm calling BS on that. I am calling BS on that. The cops going to Baldwin and saying, don't you talk to the press. No, his lawyer may be saying don't talk to the press, but the cops want as much information as possible. Keep talking, Alec, right? You have the right to remain silent. Anything? Oh, is that what they said to him? And that's what he's claiming? I don't buy it. I don't. He did say Helena was his friend and that he took her out for dinner upon arriving to shoot Rust. Alec also characterized the crew as well-oiled, noting the incident as obviously shocking and devastating to him. He also touched on how Helena's family is doing, saying they're mortified, but that he's in touch with them quite often, ditto for the authorities. One major takeaway from his interview is the fact Alec spoke on what should happen with firearms on movie sets going forward. He fully supports tightening up safety measures and possibly banning real guns and live ammo altogether, while acknowledging he isn't a pro on that. It's interesting. Alec asked an open-ended question that seems to show where his head's at as far as consequences, wondering how many real guns and bullets have been fired on film and TV sets over the past several decades, mostly without incident. In his mind, a lot. Up until now, Baldwin has only spoken about the tragedy once in his own words, but it was via Twitter and not in the flesh. Shortly after the shooting took place, he issued a since-deleted statement saying, quote, "There are no words to convey my shock and sadness regarding this tragic incident that took the life of Helena Hutchins, a wife, mother, and deeply admired colleague of ours. I'm fully cooperating with the police investigation to address how this tragedy occurred." Okay. Maybe what happens is people see Alec Baldwin pointing the gun with blanks and shooting it at people because Alec Baldwin has reckless disregard for the rules. And then they sabotaged him by putting a bullet in the gun. I just think we are trying so hard, and we have been trying so hard since this started, to explain away what is very simple. Alec Baldwin pointing a gun at someone, pulling the trigger, and a bullet coming out and killing that person. We're trying to explain it away. Is that not then the perfect murder scenario? Is the implication then that anybody who wants to kill anybody else just lures them to a movie set and draws a weapon and says, can't blame me, it's a movie set? Or do we look at this and say, it seems like Alec Baldwin's full of ish? Discrepancies emerge as Alec Baldwin defends Rust Production, armorer, from reported on-set strife. Yahoo News, well, they're rehosting Fox, says, an investigation into the death of Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust continues. Clear discrepancies are emerging among crew members and producers like Alec Baldwin. They say Baldwin was holding the gun, somehow fired a live round, so this we all understand. The director hasn't said much about the shooting. He previously explained to photographers, so we know this. We read this already. However, he has shared a few brief comments on social media in which he seemingly denies culpability on behalf of the production for an allegedly rushed and corner-cutting set. He also seems to join those who believe Assistant Director Dave Halls is responsible. Halls was one of the very few people, including armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who handled the gun prior to Baldwin discharging a real bullet. Santa Fe County Sheriff Adam Mendoza said the investigation will focus on the people who held the gun, as well as figuring out how live rounds made their way to the set at all. According to a search warrant previously executed by the Sheriff's Department, Halls noted during an interview with detectives that he should have checked the rounds in the gun better after being handed the gun by Gutierrez-Reed, who also believed it was filled with dummy rounds incapable of discharging. They say Hall's attorney, Lisa Tarraco, joined Fox News' Martha McCallum for an interview on the story, where she addressed the inspection of the gun and couldn't seem to lock down her client's culpability. Quote, "This idea, my client grabbed the gun and handed it to Baldwin, absolutely did not happen," she said, but later backtracked and dodged questions about whether Halls handed the gun to Baldwin, despite McCallum asking whether Halls doesn't know if he handed the gun to Alec Baldwin. While Halls was allegedly one of the last people to handle the gun before it went off, and was indeed tasked with checking it prior to giving it to the actor, some believe Gutierrez-Reed may have dropped the ball as well. Her attorneys noted during an interview on the Today Show Wednesday that she loaded the gun from a box of ammo that was supposed to only contain dummy rounds. Somehow, neither she nor Halls realized the rounds had been mixed in. Okay. Maybe the crew was mad at Baldwin and they put in the live bullet. Maybe they didn't realize it would kill somebody. I just think it's spinning a conspiracy theory. Occam's razor suggests that the answer that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be the correct one. It's hard to know exactly which one makes the least amount of assumptions. Alec Baldwin reportedly did not load the weapon himself. He did, however, point it. Is the simple solution then that they all conspired to shoot this woman? How about this? Alec Baldwin having dinner with a woman who's not his wife. I don't know. I don't think that matters. I think, you're on a work set and you're meeting with somebody. But I need to understand how it is that Alec Baldwin decided to point the gun at this woman and pull the trigger. If that's the case, then I think the simple solution would ever so slightly tilt towards Alec Baldwin did it. Imagine this. The armorer loads the weapon with dummy rounds. The assistant director also has it and assumes the armorer has done a good job. Alec Baldwin takes out a dummy round and puts in a live round, points it at the woman, and pulls the trigger. We don't have hard, direct motive. We don't know that this woman, Helena, did anything to Alec Baldwin, and he claims that they were friends. But I don't think that has a big enough impact on what happened to determine that Alec Baldwin did nothing wrong. I think very clearly he did. At the very least, negligent homicide, manslaughter, because he chose to draw a weapon without checking it, pointing it at a person when he's not supposed to. And they say straight up, like this is the latest breaking news on this. They say that Baldwin was told never to point the weapon at a person. Why did he do it? I think that's the big question that needs to be asked of jurors, meaning Alec Baldwin should be criminally charged for this. And then when it goes, maybe when it goes to a jury, the defense can say, here's our reasonable explanation as to why Alec Baldwin, who is trained not to point weapons at people, pointed the weapon, pulled the trigger. I don't think he's going to have a good enough reason. I think what's happened here is, as I stated, Alec Baldwin is a staunch Democrat activist. The media is going to go for the benefit of the doubt across the board. Nope, he couldn't have done anything wrong. It was a movie set. Why would we give him the benefit of the doubt? If this was a conservative or a Republican or Trump supporter, they'd be saying it was an intentional, the guy's a gun nut, he was enraged, we know this because of who Trump is, and these are Trump supporters and all that stuff. But Alec Baldwin and everyone, even conservatives, are like, clearly it was an accident. We don't know that. We don't know that. And I think based on the factors we saw laid out over at Legal Insurrection, that Alec Baldwin was handed a weapon, didn't check it, violated his training, violated all standard firearm safety protocols, pointed the weapon at a person, depressed the trigger, in which a bullet was projected, killing a woman. Alec Baldwin committed murder, in my opinion. Anyway, I don't know if this story matters to you or anybody else at this point. Honestly, you know, I was reading news about vaccines and stuff, and I was just like, I saw the latest news that Alec Baldwin was told not to point the gun, and I'm like, why did we gloss over all of this? Why did we choose to enter this narrative from Alec Baldwin must have made a mistake or someone sabotaged him? Why is it that Yahoo News is saying it must have been sabotage? If you're going to believe it was sabotage and that there was criminal intent to kill a person, why wouldn't it have been from Alec Baldwin? Because the media won't accept that this guy could have done something. I don't know. Maybe he did. I'm not going to play games. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see y'all then.